so ours is a little different than the other projects. We are looking at the Withrow recreation area. My name's Cody, I'm the planner, engineers.
Taylor. I'm Tyler.
Good. Location just north of Withrow High School. There's Rickwood up there to the northeast. The red line would be Lawson Way. So proposed, we're going to have a stop right there, and so we're connecting neighborhood users of Hyde Park, Withrow High School kids, and then users of the Lawson Way Trail. So our big idea, we saw the space as an underutilized green space. Right now, Withrow High School uses it, neighboring residents use it, but we see all the space as we can program this to an event plaza or a recreation space, something that, I mean, you can look at Washington Park or something like that, something that we can have events for Lawson Way and with our students and anybody around who wants to come to this space. Unique offer possibility to community engagement, education, recreation. Within the problem statement, we would say it's underutilized, and we look at different forms of programming and both temporary and permanent fixes of how the space can be transformed. Quick rundown with our site plan, grading plan, landscape design, to the permanent little projects that we have. We'll talk about those in a cost analysis. Different dissection and character palettes of what the space could be ultimately. Different program options and temporality, the spontaneity of the space, and we'll highlight where the transit stop is and the connectivity to that. Just dissecting the existing site. Down here is your Withrow High School, and then your green line up there is the Lawson Way. We have 4 baseball fields on it, 2 underutilized, the ones up to the north. The Little League fields are in poor condition, not used. If Little League is playing in that area, there's 2 fields over at Oakwood which are better condition that they use, both owned by CRC. We have the tennis courts, 2 of the major fields to the south, softball and baseball, which the high school uses. Just run through some connectivity points. Mapping out down here to the west is where a large stack of your high school students will come. It's the bridge over Dana Avenue. And then up to the north, we looked at the transit stop, which will go in the medium level, connecting to the space. Identifying different users. The blue we highlighted as neighborhood residents. The green is Lawson Way users coming into the space, and the red as in the Withrow students. Just looking at how the space and where the students are coming from will give us design cues of where to place certain elements. Access and circulation. Moving toward development cues, we are talking about an internal loop and where everyone's getting into the space. Up north, we have the bike trail coming off into the space off the rail outside of the stop, so we'd avoid clutter in that situation. So hard to read on here, but we'll go into different uses. Good. Go for it. So spontaneity space. We are trying to, rather than fixed forms and functions, we are promoting design spaces that accommodate shifting interactions of users, the users that we talked about, and the open space during the workday hours, during class hours. But on weekends, the space can be programmed for festivals, marketplaces, educational purposes, as you would see in Washington Park or a comparable public space. Transformed into community space for different uses, promote health and wellness, which Hyde Park and the area residents along Lawson Way are really high up on. And a public platform for Lawson Way to call their own. If you want to have a fundraiser or a grand opening party or a concert series or anything that can happen with Lawson Way's name on it, it would happen. This might be a little better to see on the board, but we highlight different uses that could happen. minus the pointer. So on the top side, we are looking at daytime uses that could happen during school hours, both on the weekday and weekend. And then on the bottom, we would look at different evening opportunities. Through the different seasons, we could see in the winter, we could have a holiday light festival, we could have a tree lighting ceremony, we could have a temporary ice rink, even if we got to that point, a different holiday festival where we could line the internal loop with different festival lightings. We could have an art show, we could do the Wasson Way annual 10K, which we just created today. Withrow High School Art School, anything that could happen outside of public space in this region, because we think there's a demand for it, and Wasson Way will, once it's fully developed, we say it's going to call for it. Concert series, event lawn, outdoor meeting space, movies in the park, Wasson Way summer celebration. Possibilities are really endless. And then at the top, we kind of highlighted what months these sports would happen during recreation time. So we're talking Little League and different soccer or football. And then we have the high school time of scheduling as well within all the sports. So be used by all the different users. Good. Just highlighting some of the stuff that we looked at in our site plan. We're going to have a mixed-use trail for bikes and walkers or runners. It's going to be half a mile long. We're going to have a dog adventure park. It sounds really fancy, but it's a dog park. It's a fancy word. With agility attached to it, and maybe a shallow pond for the dogs. Baseball and softball fields, they exist today. We would reposition them to get a better use of the space. Tennis courts, performance plaza, the community orchard, which we'll go into, large open space that can be used for many different sports and recreation uses at different times of the year, community event space, and then the community garden. To highlight the larger site plan, so the two baseball fields, which we use for the high school, right in the middle. Up to the northwest would be our community garden. Down here we have the existing playground and the connectivity from Dana is where all the students come in. We have a potential site for a surface lot if demand called for it. We went through some numbers and depends on who's going to be there and what the space could be. We looked at that space as a potential site for it. The dog park down there as well with the pond. The transit stop, as you see up in the middle, Performance Plaza, would be our only true hardscape outside the little bit of the community garden. The existing tennis courts, the half-mile internal loop, and the baseball field.
So going into kind of the different uses, we obviously had to examine the culvert new grading, especially with the relocation of the fields. There's a couple of high spots that would need to be leveled out with how the fields are shifted, and then also the potential parking lot. After running calculations, certainly more fill than cut required. Just kind of rough number there, 2,100 cubic yards of fill. And then the parking lot, looked at that and designed that to meet all ADA standards. And as Cody said, not necessarily necessary right now, but we'll get into that in a second. This just kind of shows the red lines are all the existing, and then the green is the new grading. So there's not a whole lot of work that needs to be done. Mainly fill right around here to kind of level out. Ideal slopage for baseball, softball fields is 1% from the mound out, crowning out. So that just kind of covers that. And then down here in the parking lot, that's a pretty low area coming off of a higher street. So we're looking at roughly close to a 10-foot drop from where you entered. So it requires quite a bit of fill there to bring it up to the right space. And onto the potential parking lot. Like I said, it's not required now because we're not shifting uses. It's a recreational area right now, and after examining City of Cincinnati code, it says that if you're shifting uses, then you need, City of Cincinnati says 1 space per 100 square feet of indoor space, which we don't have, but the parking is already there, overlapping with the school, and then there's parking behind the building as well. And there is access from Dana Avenue into here. So this is just kind of the ideal size on this. We just kind of limited it to what we thought might be necessary for potential use. Obviously, we expanded further north, but if it's pretty much limited to the east due to the dog park and things like that. Since it is, well, the code says from 0 to 800 square feet, if you're going from impervious to impervious, then you don't need to worry about remediating the stormwater. We're obviously more than 800 square feet, 800 to 10,000 square feet, then you need to basically just provide a means for the runoff to access the storm sewer system. Don't need to worry about retention, detention, unless you get above the 10,000 square feet impervious space. So we did provide, looked at numbers, ran numbers for storm system, and then getting from the dog park, the pond, the branch up to the pond as potential drainage and overflow. Just kind of covered a lot of this. Ran through costs and things like that. Rough cost for the 17 vehicle, additional vehicle parking would be about $86,000. That includes grading as well as pavement. Looked at a rough number after doing several case studies, roughly $5,000 per parking space. And then the rough cost for the storm sewer, $23,000, includes pipe material, excavation, sub base, and backfill. Going into the landscaping community garden, our full set of landscape design as well as the community garden that kind of integrated the two. Focus on this is going to be more community involvement and edible landscape type things on top of the traditional produce. Just kind of a character palette as far as what we're going to cover. One big thing is the raised garden beds. This would eliminate the need for soil remediation. Since it's going to be new soil brought in, you don't really need to worry about the contamination that could be there in the blight from the potential from the freight line. This is kind of where it shows the layout, looking at some more green development, kind of community space, but this would all be just courteous pavers where that way you don't have to remediate that runoff because that is above 800 square feet. Providing access through. Up here in the top left, this is where the inner loop starts. You have access to and from, and as well as in the upper northeast corner to access that inner loop. Say you wanted to add an extra half-mile ride, etc., from the through possibly. And then kind of those would all be rentable beds, and then more of just community usage for larger plants and things like that. And then more orchard fruit, things like that. Once again, that landscape was the idea behind that, and that's just kind of making it look nice as well as making it usable.
All right, so getting into the dog park. Basically, what we want to do is provide a fresh use for an area of the Withrow Rec area that's pretty much unutilized. When I was out there doing observations and taking pictures, it seemed like everyone was either over by the ball fields or over by the playground, and no one was really kind of in this corner of the area. So we kind of wanted to bring a fresh new amenity to the park. So these are some of the things that we want to provide within the dog park. We looked at putting in a dog pond like they did at Inman Park, not too far from here. We would like to do some of the agility equipment. There's been a lot of reviews on dog parks in the area that either wish that a dog park offered this agility equipment, or dog owners were really excited that parks had this agility equipment, so we thought it would be a good idea to provide some space for that. We also want to provide drinking fountains that are dual purpose, so they have a spot for your dog to get fresh water as well as yourself. We also provide seating in shaded and unshaded areas. So this is kind of like just our general idea of how to lay out the dog park. You're going to have a separated area. So up here you would have a small dog area. One of the best practices is to divide your dog park into two separate areas, one for smaller dogs and one for all dogs. This is basically to keep your smaller dogs from feeling intimidated or shy while they're here to play. So we would have an all-dog area down here, which we looked at providing agility equipment for both areas. The all-dog area here would have more equipment and bigger equipment because to accommodate to dogs. This here is our proposed dog pond, which will be filled in the summer during the warmer months and then drained during the warmer months. So the dog pond, like I said, warmer months we're going to fill it, colder months we're going to drain it. It's going to be about 2 feet in depth and anywhere from 1,500 to about 2,500 square feet. This here is the image of what rinse-off stations look like, and basically it's for owners to basically give their dogs just a little shower before they leave, so they're not dirty when they get back in the car. So we were thinking about putting in one of these stations into the small dog area and then 2 into the all dog area. That way everyone can be accommodated. These are some pictures of the agility equipment. These here are the tunnels that dogs run through, and this is an A-frame, basically for dogs to climb up and down. Agility equipment basically offers pet owners an opportunity to interact with their dogs while they're at the park, and also help train their dogs. This is seating, shade, and water. There's a lot of trees in this area that provide natural shade, so we don't really have to do much to provide shade for the owners and the dogs. But there really isn't a lot of seating available, so we looked at putting benches in both shaded and non-shaded areas. Some people like the sun, some people don't like the sun, so we want to give them options. This here is one of those dual-purpose water fountains that I was talking about, and basically what it does is you can get fresh water for yourself and dog. The internal track width that we laid out is approximately a half a mile in length. We're proposing a 9-foot wide path so that it can accommodate all users. We were thinking of either using asphalt or crushed stone dust to build this trail. The crushed stone dust, it's cheaper. It costs a little bit more to maintain for the first few years, but after that, in the long run, it costs a little bit less. And crushed stone dust, you can have runners, bikers, and you can push strollers on it. The only two things that you really can't do on there are skateboarding and inline roller skating. The asphalt will be able to accommodate all of those, but it's a lot more expensive. So for the train stop layout, we basically sectioned off an area for this, and since we were really kind of dependent on the design of the overall system, whether or not it was going to be 1 track, 2 tracks, and how they were going to route the bike trail, we talked with Dr. Miller about this, and we basically decided that leaving off an area for it would be okay, but as far as going into in-depth design for it, we were going to leave that up to. We're going to leave that open for the overall design. So for our cost analysis, this is basically a run-through of all the costs that we saw for the dog park. Up here is the agility equipment. Down here you get into some of the things like waste bags and waste bag dispensers. Here there's some cost for some concrete slabs, basically for an entrance or a flat surface. That would be where the rinse stations are located. And down here is a $700 budget for signage, which was based on a cost from a set of guidelines that I found online. And we came up with down here about $60,000 for the dog park.
One thing that was kind of talked over the dog parks, they're not currently water. There's not a water line to that area for the dog park to supply those things. So we did look at integrating a 1-inch water line for the use that it would see. 1 inch was determined to be sufficient. And that price there includes tap fees and things like that. The placement as well is roughly $10,000.
Oh, okay. All right. So the 10,000, that's you getting water to the water.
Yeah, the 10,380 that includes your tap fee. Your tap fees are roughly, I think, $6,000 for a 1-inch line into the public water system, and then additional 4,000. 1 inch doesn't take a whole lot to place, so additional 4,000 is left of that.
This is the cost that we saw for reconfiguring the ball fields. Basically what we were going to do is position them. The one to the south, so the one to the west is going to be, we're proposing that it be used for softball because the home run fence is a little bit, it's a lot shorter. So you can actually have this open space to the north of the ball fields being used while baseball games are going on, instead of having both hitting in the same direction and some just possibly going into those spaces. And then as far as the baseball field, there's plenty of clearance in order to put up a temporary home run fence that doesn't interfere with the tennis courts. And basically to provide new backstops for this, the temporary home run fencing, new bleachers, and new infield mix is going to be roughly $36,000. We were looking. The Reds Community Fund does a lot of area baseball fields and renovations and stuff like that. So they could possibly be someone that would donate to helping with this. For the track loop, these are the costs for the two different options. This one up here is the asphalt cost, roughly about $60,000, and then the crushed stone dust is around $13,000. So as you can see, the crushed stone dust is a lot cheaper, but it does come with some limitations on use, and it costs a little bit more to maintain the first few years until it's been kind of used a little bit and fully compacted.
One thing on the track loop, we didn't mention that's going to be just as grade. Once your rough grading was done, that was kind of covered. The rough grading was covered in the grading plan and that cost. And then kind of the fields, that was more fine grading, infield mix, things like that. And then the track loop is going to be more, that's just going to be as grade. So you'll have a few hills and things like that in there, but nothing too severe that the beginner runner or mother pushing a stroller can't overcome. So then on the community garden cost, got shit there, but this just kind of includes the raised garden bed cost, as far as planks, things like that, and then garden soil based on a cubic yard price found from one of the local distributors. At the bottom it says all the individual as far as like lumber costs and things like that. We're just gathered from the nearby home improvement store at Lowe's. And then roughly it's going to be about $35,000. The permeable papers from Reading Rock, that's just kind of another one of those green elements to just alleviate cost producing stormwater alleviation.